This year's NBA playoffs have been crazy, and except for the Celtics, no one expected to see these conference finals matchups. Denver has been eliminated, which means we'll have a new champion this season. This will be the first time in NBA's history that 6 different teams have been champs in 6 years. Usually someone would win 2 or more in that time span, but this modern NBA era is so competitive and it's actually quite refreshing to see different finals every year. The remaining of these playoffs promise one hell of a spectacle, that's for sure. Hello basketball fans and welcome back to Hoop Vision. Regardless of who you support, you should celebrate good basketball and everything this season has brought us. The Western Shootout will be between the 2 great young stars, Edwards and Doncic. Both have great veterans around them, great big men, and players who can take over a game on any given night. The advantage is on the side of Minnesota, which has the home court and a longer rotation, but the Dallas players have shown that they can really step in when it is most necessary. It is probable that both Luka and Edwards will have at least one bad shooting night, so it will be interesting to see which support cast will manage to provide more help and how the coaches will make both offensive and defensive adjustments. The Wolves proved they're capable of making a comeback even after a 20-point deficit, while Luka and the Mavs showed that they are far more mature than people thought. Whether Minnesota's defense will be enough to keep Luka and Kyrie at bay will be the key question that could decide what course this series will have. Whoever wins, the biggest winners are us, the basketball fans. The match between Boston and Indiana carries less drama at first, considering that the Celtics reached the finals of the conference relatively easily. However, the absence of Porzingis due to injuries gives some hope to the Pacers fans that it would be possible to pull off a miracle. On paper, Indiana doesn't have players Boston does, but we've seen that they can play a perfect game when needed. Although it sounds unlikely, if they were to surprise Boston with at least one win in the first 2 games, the opportunity for a 3-1 lead would be determined on their home court. At the time of making this video, Boston has the lead and will probably fight even harder to avoid the home court break. However, if someone had told you last year that Miami would take a 3-0 lead against the Celtics, before the series you would have probably said it was impossible. The motto of the NBA League is where amazing happens, so we will leave all the possibilities on the table. Indiana might be heartbroken for their Game 1 overtime loss, but there's still hope for them. In order to make sure we honor all the teams, we will go through all the possible combinations and try to predict which one is most likely to occur. Boston is the favorite in the East, while Minnesota is favored in the West, so they'll be our first matchup. The Wolves have the height and length to match the C's, so Kristaps' ability to recover quickly and play in the finals 100% ready would be crucial for Boston. Edwards will certainly have enormous confidence if he leads his team to the finals. The Suns in the first round, then Denver in the second, Luka in the conference finals. Only a title would be an adequate ending for such a season. However, by getting by Dallas, Edwards would be in the situation of playing against the best defense in the league besides the one played by his team. No one could offer him the same resistance like Boston. Perhaps the key to Minnesota's success in this series would be to fully utilize Towns, Gobert, and Reed, much more so than its guards, who will have their hands full on both sides of the court. Speaking of having their hands full, a player with the most pressure in this series would definitely be Jayson Tatum. Although he is young, he has been criticized for years for lack of leadership and bad clutch decisions. But people forget or deliberately ignore important facts. Tatum played the finals against one of the best players of all time at the age of 24, and he is almost always the best player on his team. Lack of leadership argument doesn't stand ground. It's just that the NBA has become so good and so competitive that we forgot how elite these guys really are. If Boston wins the NBA Finals this year, and Tatum wins his first Finals MVP award, no one will be able to repeat the narrative that was too harsh on the young man who carries an organization such as the Boston Celtics. And since we're at carrying the Celtics, in Game 1 against Indiana, Jaylen Brown showed what differentiates a player with a max contract. Although Tatum is the team's first option, Brown has equal responsibility for this year's success, as well as more than enough ability for the 2 of them to take over certain games together and carry Boston as everyone expects them to. Not so long ago, you could hear comments suggesting a trade of Brown. As soon as people became dissatisfied with his game, they wanted to get rid of him. However, Brad Stevens has proven to be a great coach and a great general manager, knowing that good things take time. He trusted the process, and it seems to be paying off. Brown is also a nice defender, so him, Holiday, and White should be more than enough to either stop Anthony Edwards or at least slow him down. This series would be an actual test for Ant's offensive greatness since there is no better defense he could go against. Add Horford and Kristaps waiting under the basket and you have a forest made of hands to go through. Just taking a look at both rosters, the one-on-one matchups in this series are really wild. So if finals go down between the Celtics and the Wolves, the basketball world will have plenty to talk about after the last game has been played. If we had to give the edge to one team, it would be Boston, provided Porzingis comes back fit and there are no major injuries. They have been hungry for the title ever since the defeat against Golden State. Jimmy surprised them last year, so this season they are coming back for a more than deserved redemption. The second scenario is Boston facing Dallas Mavericks, who are without a doubt the biggest and the most pleasant surprise of the season. If you remember them before the trade deadline, they were dancing somewhere around the 7th and 8th seed, sometimes dropping out of the top 8 spots. By improving their length and rebounding, they've improved their team flaws and the rest was history. The Mavs went 21-9 since then and secured the 5th seed that no one had predicted them to get. After grinding it out against the Clippers and OKC, Dallas is facing their biggest obstacle so far in Anthony Edwards and the rest of the Wolves. If they manage to pass them up, their main disadvantage against Boston would be a lack of depth. Don't get us wrong, if Dallas reaches the NBA Finals, that deserves more than enough praise for all of their guys, not just Luka and Kyrie. However, Boston's lineup and bench are so stacked on every position that they'll have a much easier time making adjustments if things don't go their way. Dallas doesn't have the same luxury since we all know who their offense relies on. Luka's shooting rhythm is what usually decides what kind of game the Mavs will play. Both him and Kyrie are amazing options to have in the clutch, but constantly piercing through Boston's defense will require more than good ISO. Speaking of defense, Luka will get matched up against Holiday, Brown, White, and Tatum, so that'll be another significant factor that could impact his performance on the other end. You can't shoot well if you're tired and your hands feel heavy, so he'll have plenty of problems to solve. Since Boston plays very hard defense, that'll probably mean many uncalled fouls on him, which can also be big considering how frustrated Luka can get sometimes. Bottom line is, he'll really have to put up an almost perfect series in order to win against the Celtics. Kyrie is also expected to step up, as he's playing against his former team and a unique opportunity to win a ring without LeBron. The Mavs-Celtics matchup has all the potential for fireworks, but it depends how well the support cast plays as well. PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford have been so valuable to this roster, and trading for Lively proved to be an amazing choice despite him being a rookie. The edge still goes to the Celtics, but just because how good they look on paper. This is a series where anything could happen, and Luka has shown us why it's not a good idea to underestimate the Mavs. They've eliminated the Western #1 seed. It's not impossible they could do the same to the Eastern as well. If they found themselves against Indiana in the finals, they'd have a much more leveled matchup. But judging how the Pacers opened up against Boston, that scenario is highly unlikely to happen. Even if by some miracle Indiana managed to get to the finals, both Western teams seem more powerful in every aspect. Dallas would probably be an easier opponent, but the Wolves would just overwhelm them in every category. For now, let's sit back and enjoy the rest of these playoffs since they've been one of the wildest in the last couple of years. That's it for today, dear friends. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments below, what do you think of this year's playoffs and who do you see winning the title? Thank you for watching and growing this channel. Make sure you don't miss out on more NBA stories by hitting that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next one.